Welcome to Las Locas Chronicles, where we dig into the lives, laughter, and legacies of two Latinas walking in faith and servitude. Each week, we unpack our journeys through ministry, sharing the triumphs, trials, and everything in between. So grab your cafecito, get comfortable, and let's get into today's episode of Las Locas Chronicles.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Las Locas Chronicles.
All right.
Listen, we're hoping that you're having a great week. We're hoping that last week was great. This week is going to be an even greater week. And let us know where you are hearing this. If you're hearing us in the morning in your shower, sometimes that's where I listen to my podcast or my devotional.
Yeah.
I listen to it in the shower. I put it on the stand there and I'm good to go. So let us know where you're listening, or you driving and you listen to us. Back in the day, I don't know just if you were a Radiohead, but like you had Elvis Duran, you would hear the Z Morning Zoo, or if you were a 98.7 Kiss, this is all East Coast, of course, Northeast.
Yeah. I'm a 100% Angie Martinez fan.
Okay, Angie 100%. Martinez. Yes. So
she was my fave.
I would love to just listen to their banter, them talking.
Yes.
And it was just you felt, I don't know, and then you would get the phone calls in and the questions.
The morning
of the
show.
Day. The morning show. It was always awesome. So let us know where you are listening from, where you're listening in, where you're tuning in, what day, or are we your nighttime entertainment? Because if you know Delilah.
Oh, I love Delilah.
You are now listening to Delilah. Thank you for tuning in. Where are you calling from? Who do you love? Who's on the call tonight?
Delilah does get some good advice. I do feel like she gets some godly advice though sometimes. I'll be like, oh, Delilah, did you get that from the Bible, girl? You read in the Bible?
Well, she in the Bible. She ain't great. Oh, stay away from that Delilah spirit. But we want to know. We want to know a little bit more of you. We've been on for a month now.
Yeah.
And we've been doing this thing. And
what episode is this?
This is episode 6.
Yeah.
This is episode 6. And we're going, and we're going, and we're going, and we're just...
And we're doing it.
And doing it. That's not a great song. but this is who we are. This is who we are. We're 90s, and music in the 90s was the best music.
Listen to this.
Ever.
What's up, y'all? What you gotta say?
Who's
at
on the
work with Lisa and Dre? How do we remember that?
How do we remember that? We used our brain.
What was it? Who's on the phone?
With that Lisa and Dre.
Right. That's what
we're going to check it out. But yeah. That's right. We need our own little...
And then they would pick a name and make up a little rap song.
Did they do that?
It was something like that. And then what I remember was in high school, me and my friend would sit around, we'd pick out people's names that we didn't like. And then we made up these jacked up songs about them.
Oh my God.
I know that's before,
yeah.
Jesus came into my heart.
Listen. We all have our past, right? I had my friend Regina Lidge with the bridge. That's what I used to call her. Because if you know me, I give everybody a nickname. And I get that from my father. And me and Regina, we had the burn book. We will write stuff in there. And one of us has that burn book. I think it's me. And I think that book is in my mother's
gosh.
And I'm going to find it.
Find it.
Oh my gosh. So that's what we would do. I had a question for you. Now that we're talking about this, it's so crazy how it all comes together. Did you ever do the prank calls?
Yes.
Who did you do the prank calls with?
Well, I did them mostly when I was in middle school and early high school.
We didn't know each other at the
Yeah,
time.
we didn't know each other, but, you know, ex-boyfriends, you know, girls we hated, you know, we were like, oh my God, she's such a snob. Let's call her.
So you
then we like all yell at one time, you're ugly, and then like hang up the
Oh
phone. I know
my
it's so horrible.
gosh.
This person probably has like the lowest self-esteem right now.
Listen.
So I apologize.
Words matter.
Words do matter.
Words matter. First, I just want to say before we get into words, because obviously we're going to get into words right now.
Right.
We're going to get into the words that I need you to start thinking. We're going to get into the words today that were detrimental. And that we had to...
Immediately a thought came to my mind.
See?
Immediately.
Thank you, Holy Spirit.
Immediately.
Once again, this is a sharing. We have no book. If you know me, I like order. I like to process things. I like to be organized.
Yes.
This is out of my element where we're just off the cuff and we're just allowing God to just take control of the conversation completely, right?
Yeah.
So we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to what were some words that you had to after perhaps many years renounce. Renounce. So as she's thinking of that, and I have to think about some words too. Jess is here and we're doing this. We've taken some time out of our schedules and we're just doing this God thing, this special project that we've been talking about. Mm-hmm. And we're grateful for our husbands that are a part of it. But Jess is here this week, and the weather's a little bit crazy here where I'm at in Texas. And it's super hot because this girl wants it to be like 1,000 degrees in this house. It is super hot in here. So if you see like I'm constantly drinking, it's because I need some more ice cubes in this.
You didn't have to.
It is like I have a big old sweater. No, we can't turn on the fan. I got this big old sweater on and I'm already perspiring. Like if my hair starts to grow in the middle of this pod, it's simply because my girl.
I mean, it's cold.
I just needed to make it out there. Like it's not a hot flash. But my girl is legit like hot.
But that's Texas though. It could be like 40 in the morning, 70 in the afternoon, and go back down to 30 by nighttime.
And then another thing that happens when Jess and I get together to do this is we eat a lot.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Listen to me. I am a bad eater, meaning I love food. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, my curviness doesn't just happen by itself.
I mean, we got to keep up the curves.
But the thing is, like, I eat maybe 1.5 times a day. And that's not good. Like, I wish I was a breakfast person, but, like, I'm more of a... My thing is, I get up in the morning, I come straight to prayer, get into my word, then work. Then I'm a workhorse. And I will work until that's it. And my husband and I have been purposeful at night to spend time together. And that's usually just unwinding, watching something that's just funny or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But when we get together, bro.
We eat.
My girl eats breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks.
Yeah.
Healthy snacks because you've lost a lot of weight. You're keeping up with your health. Which I applaud.
I'm trying to.
I applaud. Yes.
30 pounds.
30 pounds. That's a whole little person.
Yeah.
That's a whole little person.
But yeah, we do eat a lot.
We eat a lot, dude. And I'm like right now.
But you're a great host. That's why.
I love you.
Like I come here and she has like a refrigerator just full of food and like good food and snacks. And I'm like, girl, why you got so much candy in your office? Like I'm a sugar like addict. And you go to my house and I'm like, girl, we have to eat out because I have no food.
Let me tell you. Let me. That's the truth. When I was like, yo, my girl's banking when she be eating 3 times a day out. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like for me, it's like you eat once a week and out, and that's like, But my girl was like, what you want to order today? I was like, yo, what, room service? Okay, let's go. Let's pop. So we're eating like breakfast, lunch,
we had the best breakfast, lunch. It was brunch.
Right.
It was the best. The biggest pancakes I've ever had in my life.
We went to
best Biscuits and gravy.
We went to the Black Bear Diner. If you know, that's like a Northwest thing, and it happens in, I think, Oregon, and then Seattle, and then California, or California, then northward, and then it's hitting like Texas and a few other states. But they have buttermilk pancakes.
It changed my whole life.
Sweet. And
changed my whole life.
It was delicioso. I'm a foodie. I love me some food. I have a food page that I haven't been on. I'm terrible at social media, y'all. I this year I purposefully said I'm gonna post more, and I did one post, and I still have stuff that I want to post. Haven't had the time, but I'm gonna do it because I believe there's nothing to it
but to do it.
So, what was that? Because this is nothing to it. Vogue. Dun, dun.
Oh, got it.
Always in my music. So, we had the buttermilk pancakes, Black Bear Diner. It was good. And we had the biscuits were like this big.
They were
homemade.
ginormous.
And like, I'm also a carb girl. Like, don't play games with me. Like, give me the carbs. I'm happy. And then I was like, my girl's gonna be hungry around, so I made sure we had dinner ready, because that was brunch, then we have dinner, and I was like, if she needs some snacks, we got snacks. And then we had like a snack. We took her to eat ice cream.
Coconut ice cream.
She liked coconut ice cream.
It was the best. I'm supposed to be on no sugar, but it's just so hard when you're
traveling and you're with your friend, like.
Yeah. And now I got some lemon cookies waiting for me.
Yeah. And then my husband was like, what does Jess want? And I was like, she likes anything lemon. So he bought her the fake Girl Scout lemon cookies from Walmart. Big up to Great Value. If you know, you know. They taste just like them, boo.
It does.
Have you tasted them before?
I've tasted those before.
So she's going to get her Great Value on after this. Like, I told her we're going to do another mukbang. We're going to change the camera around. We're going to have a whole conversation. We're going to do the... But...
we could have done that today because that dinner was slamming.
Can you talk about that dinner, please?
So it was arroz con gandules.
Right. Give it up.
It was habichuelas. It was chicken flautas. With homemade guacamole and salsa. Slamming. Okay. It was like oven baked chicken. So good. I might go back for seconds after this.
And you're more than welcome to. And
Alexa's a great host. She cooked, like, this is no exaggeration, like 40 flautas for 3 people. And so
I was like, yo, she has breakfast here. I'm thinking ahead of time. Like,
I will eat that for breakfast too.
Listen,
some scrambled
in
eggs
Colombia,
on the side.
we call it recalentado. Like, you just put an egg on it and it's breakfast.
Boom, done. I'm ready. Let's
bada
go.
bing, bada boom. We're good. Like, So, okay. Now we're going to go back to the words. I just have to say, like, if you see, the camera adds pounds. But if you see... If you see throughout the course of this show that your girl is just gaining, it's because Jessica.
We've been spending so much time together. And then when she comes to Dallas, there's so many great restaurants in Dallas.
Right.
That
is true.
We have to try them all.
No, for sure. Because everything that I love, let me speak to you right here. Everything that I love closes down where I live. And it's gotta stop. Because I am a mom and pop shop type person. I love homemade things. I don't know. Cooking makes me very happy. There's a lot of love put into it.
Your cooking makes me happy.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And that's why I cook for you. Unlike Mr. Pineda, he's on the verge of never being cooked for again.
Right. Of all the things, she made everything handmade. Guacamole, salsa, these flautas.
Chips. I made homemade chips.
Yup. You made homemade tortilla chips. Like, all of it was slamming. He's like, hun, you forgot the lettuce and the tomatoes.
What But my man, I squeezed orange juice for you. Like
she's like, I made homemade guacamole and salsa that was good. Like it was good.
Okay.
I basically had, guacamole with the flauta on the side because I was just.
It was good. It was my Puerto Rican mix.
Right, because it was arroz con gandules too.
Porty mix.
Roasted. It was a just in honor of the Puerto Rican that came to visit her today.
That's right, and the culture that we're in at this moment.
Yeah,
right?
it was a good blend.
It was a fusion. It was a fusion.
I felt it in my spirit, in my belly,
in her stomach, in her soul. So it was good. So if you see the weight gain, I just want you to know it's because my girl here eats 3 times a day and my stomach's just not used to it.
And I eat fast.
Yo, that's annoying to me. Okay,
I don't know why I do that.
That is so annoying. Like, how are you savoring anything?
I don't. I just inhale.
I literally looked down this morning and I'm looking at my 2 strips of bacon, my, because we split. And I look back up and her plate disappeared. I'm like, my sister, like, what happened?
I don't play. She want to sit here and she wants to, just take a bite and savor this bite, for 15 minutes. I'm like, girl, just eat the stuff and let's go. Like, what are we doing?
I'm sorry that I had some form of etiquette growing up. Table etiquette. I'm sorry that I wasn't growing up with the wolves. And gulp.
Everyone that I know says that I eat so fast. And I try my best not to, but I just, I don't know where it comes from.
Well, you fail. And we're going to have to work on this. Yeah.
Do you think I should work on it?
I think you should, because it's like...
Am I missing out on life?
Not that you're missing out on life, but...
The experience.
Yeah. I believe food is an experience.
Oh, okay.
I do. That's why I enjoy it. And I enjoy watching people savor the taste and the blends. And there's just so much.
I'm like, let's go. Eat it. On to the next.
Anyway, so talking about... Let's talk about words.
Words.
Can you remember the first time that you received a negative word and how it affected you?
I mean, I don't know if I remember the first time.
Okay. Or what is a recollection that you have?
And I don't know if I had said this on another pod, but a pastor in my early years as a mother and a wife, and again, I was rough around the edges. But he said to me, God will never use you to speak because you talk too ghetto.
Oh, I remember that.
And I was devastated by that. And do you know that till this day, all these years later, every time I'm going to get ready to speak, those words come into my mind. And I just have to, rebuke the devil. Every time. And that was, I must have been 22, 23.
Yeah.
I'm 45
right
now.
But at that age, you were forming ministry. You were just at the cusp of coming into what you called to do and all of that. So, yeah, it's always going to catch you early on.
Yeah, and I remember that sermon that you had spoken about in another pod. It was a Joseph sermon that you had sent me on a tape. And you said, y'all, a cassette tape.
Yes.
My girl is so bomb that she heard this message.
That's the message I got saved to, girl.
And got a cassette tape of it.
Yes.
And sent it to me. And I listened to that thing 1,000 times.
Thank you for being that friend. That I got saved at 17. I was in my room and I just came from the clubs. I wilded out. I did a lot of things and I'm not afraid at all to expose them. I was very promiscuous. I was also kind of looking at who was I, looking for my identity. I was promiscuous in a lot of areas, and there was every option available to me. And when one day after the club and after going out, I came home, I remember somebody preaching to me and going to church at 14 years old because my neighbor had invited me, and I knew the Lord. Like, even at a young age, I knew there was a God. You know, my mother has, and I said it before, my mother has Post-it notes that I would write, "Dear God, I love you," at 5 years old. Like, there was a connection, right? So anyway, so at 17 years old, I'm here and I'm just crying like, this can't be life. I am tired of being the life of the party one moment and then being so miserable and so depressed the next. Like, when everybody's gone, I want to end my life. Like, why am I alive?
Yeah.
You know? And so here I am, and I'm saying, if you're really there and if you could forgive me, because when I tell people that what they see right now is just mercy, they don't know who or what God took me out of. And I feel like if there's anyone out there that I've ever hurt prior to church, prior to ministry, I'm talking about living in the world and bringing people into that darkness. I am so sorry. I was lost and I was trying to look for somewhere to fit in, you know? And I did not know what love was. I didn't love myself. I didn't love myself, Jess. And so in not loving yourself, there's no way that you could love somebody else. You know, I try to be a good person, but that sin and that evil nature, that was there. And I know that I hurt people. But I said, if you could forgive me, because I knew the filth that I was, then let me know. And I really needed God to speak to me right there and then. And I closed my eyes and I wanted to like open them up and see an angel stand before me. You are forgiven, you know. That didn't happen. So I was like, man, you know, and I felt crushed. And I felt like, you know what? God can't forgive me because I'm too much of a sinner.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's how I felt. So
a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah, they do. And it's a lie.
It's a trap of
from the enemy. So I did what I knew best. Music was my drug. So I went to turn on the TV that was in my room, and BET was on, and I didn't know that it was, I don't know what day of the week it was, but it was Gospel Hour on BET at like 2 a.m.
Come through, BET.
Okay? And there was a man preaching. And it was an infomercial. Well, it showed the whole preaching, but it was kind of like a commercial for that preaching, for that ministry. And for $4.99, you could buy this cassette of this tape. And I was shaking. I took my phone that was in my room, plugged in the wall. I paid my own phone bill because that's how I partied, girl. That was my party line. And I just got my Dime card. I don't even know if Dime Bank still exists.
I don't think so.
But I got my Dime card out, and I only had about $6.99 in that bank account. Okay? And I called the number on the screen, and I said, I would like to purchase, order. And she said, thank you, man. Thank you so much. She didn't call me ma'am. She said, can I pray for anything for you? And I mean, I'm already crying. Like, you want to pray for me? I said, well, I just accepted Jesus, and, you know, and I mean, it was just a whole turnaround. Do you know that I would play that tape? The preacher, and one day, Jess, I need you to touch and agree with me. One day I'm going to meet Pastor Michael Pitts from Cornerstone Church in Cleveland, Ohio. And I don't want to waste your time. I know that time is valuable for every man and woman of God. I don't need you to pray over me. I don't need you to prophesy over me. I just want to shake your hand, and maybe, if I am allowed, to give you a hug and tell you thank you.
For that message, yeah.
For that message that brought me to Jesus.
Yeah.
You will never know. You will never know. And so I purchased that, and I had promised the Lord that night that if he were to save me and forgive me, that I will go out and save other young people like me. So because I didn't know the Bible like that, and I didn't know how to preach and all this, I would bring people from my school, from my friends, to my room, and I would be like, hey guys, sit down, because I would always have music playing. I would have the mixtapes going. And we would get down with the reggae dance hall, okay, and or Jodeci or whoever was out, right? So then so I closed the window shades, and I was like, y'all gonna listen to this real quick, and I would put that message on side A, and then at the end, in the middle of the message, be like, please turn to side B, and I'll be like, hold on, guys, and I will flip it. And do you know that some of my friends would listen to that whole message, and they would cry, and we would do the Lord's Prayer together.
Oh, I love it.
So then this is like a few years, like a year maybe into meeting you and to hooking up with you.
Yeah.
And I gave Jessica a copy of that because my father copied everything. He copied every tape and everything. So
and I actually think this was, I don't think I got the tape very early on. The tape was given to me, was mailed, you mailed me the tape.
Okay.
And I already had my son Joshua. And I think we weren't really talking at that time.
Okay.
And I think we were trying to reconcile.
Yeah.
And you had sent me this tape.
There are lost years in our relationship.
Yes. And so she sent me this tape it was a peace offering. It was, I see you, I love you. And I listened to this tape. And it was really, man, God is such a God of perfect timing. Because if she would have given me that tape, and I would have listened to that all those years before, I don't know that it would have had the same impact that it did when I was home in that apartment by myself with my son. You know, and I remember getting this in the mail and being excited because it was a package. And I immediately listened to the tape. And on this tape, well, let me tell you why it was so important.
Yeah.
Because I had met my husband. Mm-hmm. We both worked at the post office.
I know exactly where that tape is right now. It's in this house.
We need to find the tape. I don't even know if we have a cassette player. But I had met my husband. 2 months later, I got pregnant. 2 months later.
I will never forget the day.
Alexa was so mad with me.
So
Not mad, disappointed because
we looked out for
2 months.
Each other.
2 months.
Not only that, but we looked out for each other.
We looked out for each other.
You don't understand. Like, we would make sure that the other didn't fall.
Right.
We loved the Lord, but we had the same underlying sin.
Yeah. We struggled with,
We struggled with sex. We struggled with fornication. We struggled.
Yeah.
It was something that we would resort to.
It was something that we turned to each other to hold each other accountable.
Right.
So when I came out pregnant, it was like, oh.
And I would tell her, Jessica, don't tell me. Did he sleep over or was he there? And Jess would never lie to me. And I think that we started drifting away.
Yeah. Because, again, we spoke about this today, not specifically about that, but about, you know, when you have to keep telling somebody over and over and over again. Yeah. And after a while, you're kind of like, okay, at this point, you have the information.
Right.
It's up to you to apply the information.
Right.
So I think it was after all that. And then we were kind of you were trying to reconcile, because that's just who you are. You're not a person that stays mad or anything else. So I get this in the mail. And I have my son, you know, me and Richie got married 6 months later, or 4 months later, 2 months pregnant. 6 months later, we're married now. I didn't even know this guy, to be honest with you. And I tell my kids this all the time. Like, well, first of all, my daughter just figured it out when she was like 19. So
really,
she was like,
she didn't put it together.
They didn't put it together, and then she was actually mad at me. She said, "Mom," she goes, "You're always telling us that as a family we need to tell each other the truth, and you never told me the truth about that." And I was like, you know what? She held me accountable, and I love that she did that. So anyway, so after that, I'm sitting here, I'm reflecting on my life, you know, and my husband's wonderful.
Yes.
By the mercy of God, because it was God's mercy. Because that story could have went wrong all types of ways. He could have been trash. He could have left me.
Yeah.
He could have given me a disease that was incurable.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, girl, like
you had no idea who this person was.
Thank goodness.
Right.
That, so anyway, and I do believe that ultimately it was God's will for my husband and I to get married, but I rushed it. Right. And because I rushed the process,
right,
it wasn't ready. We were not ready, and we suffered a lot in our marriage because we were not ready.
Thank you for like, I think that's important right now, because there's so much to the story that happened, and we're talking about it for the first time.
Yeah, yeah.
We've never really discussed any of this.
Right. We kind of just just kept going.
We just kept going, but I think it's important to kind of express sometimes when we do things and then we say, well, God allowed it, or it was God's plan. No, that wasn't God's plan. Right. Maybe it was his plan to introduce you to this man because he knew that this is who you were going to be with. And yes, this was ultimately God's gift to you as a husband.
I think ultimately in the timeline of things.
Right.
It was
the way.
It was I took what God had for me and just completely rushed it, recklessly, didn't steward it the right way. And because of that, we suffered.
Yeah.
And so back to the tape. So here I am, of course, reflecting on my own self and, being real young. I mean, I had my son. We got married when I was 20. I had my son. I had just turned 21. First of all, my daughter's 22. And I think if she had a baby, I'd have to go and raise it because I don't. I don't know the baby would survive.
Right.
I didn't know anything. And so, so she sent me this package, and on the tape is this message about Joseph. And in the message, it just brought me so much encouragement. And what I remember the most is the enemy will try to destroy you before you ever come into the call on your life.
Yes.
And I heard that.
That's it.
And my heart starts beating so fast. I'm crying. And I listened to this tape so many times that I think the little...
The
little film in the inside. Like it actually ripped. The cassette player ate it up.
Wow.
And I had the tape for years. And then you know how you try to repair it with the little tape?
Yeah.
And so God already had, you see how God is? God already had implanted that in my heart, because probably about a year later, I ended up at this other church. We moved to Florida from New York. To start a new life and to really, because again, I had that stigma of, she got pregnant, she ran off and married this guy. And so we kind of had this negative stigma. And so we just wanted a new start, a place where people didn't know us.
Yeah.
And my family was slowly migrating to Florida. And that pastor told me that. And I think God already had planted the seed, right? Mm. And so when he said that, and I think when people have negative words towards you, there's two things that can happen. You take that to heart and you become self-destructive, and it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Wow.
Or you take it as gasoline to throw in your fire to make you move more into and push more into what God has for you,
right?
Because you know that God is greater, because your faith is in God. So in that moment, am I having faith in my own abilities, or am I having faith in a God that will give me strength and will prepare me to be the woman that he's called me to be? And so at that moment, we all have a choice. We can take those words and we can put it in our, put faith in ourselves, or we can put faith in God. And so I remember that message. When he said that, those words came to my mind. The enemy will always try to destroy you before you ever come into the place that God has for you.
Right.
And those words, I recognized them immediately as the enemy was trying to destroy me, because he knew that ultimately he was going to use my mouth for his glory.
Right. To communicate the message
to
of the
communicate
gospel.
The word of God
right.
to the world.
To the world.
And that's exactly it. Wherever God is going to use you is the place the enemy will attack you.
That's it. That's it.
So again, in one of the first pods, I said I had spoken about this person that I deeply hurt because I criticized the way this person sang when we were in youth group together. And you know what?
Many moons ago.
Many moons ago, we were 18.
Yeah.
Right?
We were 18. This person was younger.
Mm-hmm. And do you know how musically talented this person, learned the piano, literally months, she would just sit here and just play a song and sing so beautifully. That's exactly where God wanted her to be. And I allowed the enemy to use me to plant seeds of what's the word I'm looking for? Of doubt in her heart.
Right. Of doubt, of
insecurity.
Insecurity, that's the word.
You know, in her heart, the same way that person had done to me later on.
Yeah.
And so we have a choice.
We have a choice. The Bible says that out of a man's tongue could produce life or death, right? Life or death. And we speak so much death on a day-to-day basis.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just going to give some examples. You look in the mirror, you're like, oh my God, I'm so fat.
Yeah. My thighs.
I
probably did at least 6 times today.
I'm so gross. Yeah. Like, but we speak so ill of ourselves. And in speaking ill of ourselves, we're speaking ill of the creation that God in his beautiful sovereignty formed. It says he formed us in our mother's womb. When you form something, you do it so intricately. You know, we're not made out of molds.
It's a one of a kind.
It's a one of a kind. And what you are saying about yourself is, this is not good enough. This is ugly. This is trash. This is, you know.
And we were created in his image.
Likeness and image. And so be careful what you say about you. Oh, I'm so stupid. And you know what? We don't, it's not like we plan to destroy ourselves. And some language is very learned. We learn because we heard our parents or someone close to us, someone that raised us, someone that's around us, that you're so stupid. And so as an adult, all of a sudden we've adapted that language. My God, why did I spill that? I'm so stupid. Don't speak that over yourself, and don't speak that over your children.
Everything my mother hates about herself, are the things that I have hated about myself. She hated her curly hair. I hated my curly hair. She hated her
curly hair. Even today at Black Bear Diner, the first thing our amazing waitress said was, "Is that really your hair?"
Yeah. She said, "Is that your natural hair?"
Yeah.
And the thing that I hated so much about myself, God brought me to love so much about myself.
Yeah.
Because for years, I changed it. I would straighten it for years and years and years and years and years. Yeah. The things that I would hear my mother criticize about herself, about her body, her thighs, right? All the things are the things that I hated about myself all those years. And it took years of, and of course we still struggle. Like I still struggle with those things too, you know? But it goes to show you that your kids are listening to you. The people around you are listening to you.
Sure.
You know?
And you know what? You're listening to you.
And you're listening to you.
You're listening to you.
That's good.
Yeah. And I feel it's so heavy just that, like, today we need to make a decision to change our words around. We cannot erase the words that were said to us. Mm-mm. We cannot, but we can, and you used the word last time, we can deprogram what those words meant, you know, and how we receive them. I have a spiritual daughter that, you know, we joke all the time, and she is a beautiful young lady. Mm-hmm. You know, beautiful, like she has legs for days.
Gorgeous.
She's gorgeous, beautiful.
Beautiful smile, beautiful hair, beautiful personality, everything.
And she dealt with some insecurities along the way, and she would always tell me, like, when you walk into a room, you come in with all this confidence, you know, and I can never give you a compliment because you're like, yup, right? You know, she'll be like, man, your hair's so nice. I'm like, isn't it though? You know? And I remember that, and I say that because, yes, I see my flaws. I have stretch marks. I have cellulite. My boobs are not lifted. You know, can we keep it real? Can we keep it 100? Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, like my boobs are, and they've never been perky. You know, I have a sister. She has an amazing body, and
she does.
And, you know, hate her. You know, no, I love her, but I if I sat around and took myself apart, I would be miserable. I would be wearing the baggy clothes, and I would be, n- not caring, and I don't know, that would mess with who I am today. But instead, the I've always taken it upon myself to say, you know what, Alexa? Accept who you are, and you're a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
I love words of affirmation. That's my love language. But the first one that needs to be to affirm me is me. Aside from scripture and what God says over me, I have to accept it.
Yeah. Well, the Bible says that David encouraged himself. You got to encourage yourself.
Yeah. And yes, I know I have all these flaws and imperfections, and somebody else will be like, "Oh, girl." And yes, I don't like to wear tank tops because my arms are not toned. My arms are a little saggy and a little, something. But when it's hot, freak that, son. Like, I don't care. I'm gonna come out, and if I wave and we all waving, it's all right. Like, no,
we gonna fly together, girl.
Jessica always said, like, we'd be the perfect body if I had her top and she had my body, right? Like, we always said that, like, if we could put it together, like. But the fact is that Jess is Jess, and I am who I am, and I have chosen to speak well of me.
Yeah.
I have chosen to, there are times I'm like, you know what, girl, you ate a little too much. You're gonna have to lose these 5 pounds. They don't look good on you, and they're not healthy. And yo me propongo, and we take them off. And then I'm not here to be a size 4, but I'm gonna be a healthy 10, and I'm gonna look beautiful in whatever I wear.
That's one thing about you, that you have always taken care of yourself, no matter what size you have been. Always.
I've been up and down.
Your hair, your nails, your makeup. Always try to be healthy. Always try to look your best and present yourself in the best way. And I've always looked at you like, she takes care of herself. That is a beautiful kept woman.
Thank you. And I've done it for the reason that I want to be an example. Yeah, we could pull ourselves way apart. My hair is thinning. My eyebrows aren't what they used to be.
Las
canas. You saw me. I was like, oh, hell no. But, and we're talking about appearances, right? Because maybe a lot of people can relate to that.
Because even think about in school, these kids, the things that we told each other, there's people that still struggle with things that somebody called them in elementary school. Like, they used to, funny, they used to call me flat chest Jessica, ironically. And so, but I still remember that.
And you know what? It's funny you said that, because I remember, my sister and I did not have the best relationship growing up. You remember, we were always at like a cat and a dog. And I knew how to get to her. And it was on her physical appearance. And it wasn't until years later that she would tell me that she would pray for God to change her physical appearance because of something that I said. She attacked me too, but I knew how to attack her back. I can never take those words away. And I thank God that, she's a beautiful woman.
Oh, she's gorgeous.
Right? But I thank God that she was able to surpass that. It changed. But what if her body didn't change? And because of her sister, that she would feel less than a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
And today in society, everybody wants to appear the same. Because there's a false standard that's out there. When we need more people that look at themselves and say, man, I'm beautiful. I don't care what anybody says. You know what I'm saying? Like, This body represents a living body, a living organism. You've had the blessing to have 2 kids come out of your womb, and marks to prove it.
That's right. And there are women that would die to have these stretch marks, to say, you know what, that's proof that I gave, birth to a child. And here we are, ashamed of these scars that gave birth to life.
Yeah.
And for many years I would be embarrassed of those. And now I'm like, what?
For real?
Yeah. I would be embarrassed about it, because what do they show on the news and on magazines and social media now? Women with flawless skin and stars that have twins, and 6 months later it looked like they didn't have anything.
True.
And then you feel bad, right? Because you feel this is saggy and you have a pouch here and all the stretch marks and everything else.
And then I would feel bad, because I'd be like, you're complaining about things that I have, and I have no children. Like, what's my excuse?
Yeah. Until one day I was doing a message.
Okay.
See, because when you got to preach, the message has to
hit home first.
It has to hit here first.
Yeah.
I was preaching a message about Hannah in the Bible.
Love that. Hannah, listen, 1 Samuel
1.
You need to go in, because one day we're going to talk about Penina. We need her in our lives. Go ahead.
So I was giving a message about Hannah, and Hannah, the Bible says that God closed her womb. She was not able.
God closed her womb.
She was not able to have children, and so she would cry every time they had to go do this feast every single year, and her husband loved her more, even though she didn't have any children. But he would give but the other wife had many children, but he would give Hannah the double portion of of the meat and the offering and all the different things. And so I thought to myself, Hannah went to the temple and cried, and she was crying so much that Eli thought that she was drunk.
The priest, yeah.
The priest thought that she was
like,
drunk.
look at this woman. How's she gonna come in here in a sacred place drunk?
Like,
she has no respect.
Right. And that means that she was crying one of those ugly, snot coming out, crazy, where you can't even, I can just imagine in my mind,
I remember
crying for a child.
I remember us crying like that in MCE.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
I remember us crying like that, and I remember turning around, and you were right there, and you were right beside me, crying ugly.
Yeah.
Because we wanted God.
Yeah. Yeah. And so she cried. The Bible says that she cried. Her heart was crying out to the Lord because she wanted to have a child, And she says, God, if you give me this child, I will dedicate him to you. And that's exactly what she does. And then it says that she gets up and she goes, and she was crying no more. She had faith that God was going to answer her prayer, right? Either God was going to answer her prayer, or whatever the answer was, she was going to be okay with it, right? And so, I was preaching
to you.
So that message, that day, when I was thinking about Hannah, I thought Hannah would be proud of her stretch marks, because it was proof of God's blessing over her life. That's proof of the blessing, that.
Yeah.
That's so significant of our whole lives with the Lord, that we don't go through this thing without any scars.
Yeah.
And those scars are our testimony.
Yeah.
So we don't have to ever be ashamed of the things that we've gone through.
Right.
Because that's the testimony of God showing up.
That's
that
right.
I can sit here and go, you know what? And I joke with my kids all the time. I say, my son got me right here. Two big patches right here in the front of stretch marks. And my daughter finished me off around, right?
They gave you a belt.
They gave me a whole,
they're
like, you know what?
A WWF belt.
And I can't imagine Hannah just sitting there going, what would I do for those stretch marks? What would I do for the proof that God has blessed me to be able to give birth to 2 amazing children,
And when we're talking about words, there are people that are not living in their purpose, and they're not birthing the things that God has told them to birth.
Yes.
Because somebody said, how is God going to use such a prostitute like you, or such a bee like you, or such a, you're at church and look what everything that you've done, and you want to come over here now and worship the Lord, and they want to remind you.
Yeah.
And people have stopped living in the truth of God for their lives because of somebody's word.
Yeah.
Had Hannah listened to the priest Eli and stopped praying,
right,
and said, oh, I'm sorry, and just left, she wouldn't have received the hope that by this time next year, or go in peace.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to make up in our minds to believe the truth about who we are is not what they said we were. And we have a lot of that. There's a lot of times in our life that we have had words implanted. You know how implants, they're placed inside, and the only way to take them out is through surgery.
Mm-hmm.
When I was growing up, one of the first words that I heard, the first man in my life, which was my father, and it wasn't because he wanted to, it was the language that was around him growing up, was, you're an idiot y eres una basura. Whenever he would get upset at something, instead of,
That's horrible.
Instead of just getting upset about it, he'd be like, sal de aquí, idiota, or eres una basura. To hear someone that you love,
and basura basically is trash.
It's trash. You're trash. To hear someone call you that, I had to fight that for many years. Even, like you said, even in my adulthood, like, I always knew for some, and I would have to say, the Lord's wisdom has always guided me. But there are times where you're weak. And it is in those weak moments that the enemy comes to rear his ugly head.
Always.
And those words will rear up. You're an idiot. You're trash. Like, you're not going to amount to much.
Yeah.
And I had to fight tooth and nail to not believe those words. Because I could have lived them out.
You could have.
I think about it, and I'm sure you have too. My life would be very different right now.
It's that pivotal moment. And I just really believe that life is just full of decisions and pivotal moments. And it was that pivotal moment. Like, what do I do with this information?
Yeah.
Do I use it as gasoline in my fire, or do I dwell in it?
Yeah.
Do I allow it to be an anchor in my life,
right,
to hold me back from doing the thing that God called me to do?
Right.
And if it wasn't for those words, like, I was so fired up and angry, and I was so fired up and angry that it actually pushed me to do things that I didn't even think that I could do. It pushed me to go back and sign up for school and finish.
I remember that.
It pushed me to get my associate's degree. And when I first got that first like jolt of, oh my God, I put my mind to something and I accomplished it. Then I went on and got my bachelor's degree. Then I was like, you know what? Well, I think I can keep going.
The words that were said to her were, you're not going to amount to anything.
Right.
It's important for everyone to understand the fire that fueled you.
Right. And what I heard, yes. What I heard was, you're stupid. You talk ghetto because you are ghetto. You're that's where you belong. That's what I heard. You belong back in the ghetto. You belong back in the Bronx where you came from.
In Hunts Point.
That's what I heard. You're stupid.
Yeah.
And so to prove that I wasn't stupid,
you're beneath me.
Right. You're beneath me because he had way more education. He was highly educated. And for someone that I respected and I looked up to, being so highly educated with a graduate degree and everything, was a counselor, a counselor.
Right.
To use his words.
You should know better.
You should know better.
Right.
It put this fire inside of me that years later, every time I accomplished something, I would think back and say, if he could see me now.
Wow.
If he could see me now. Which, again, you know, we always have to be careful with our intentions and our heart's posture.
And I was going to ask you that, like, now are you doing it for you and not to prove anything to me?
Right. So now I can see along the way that that maybe it was an unhealthy.
Right. Yeah.
You know, because education is good, I think.
It's great.
Right? It's great.
Yeah. Girl, but I'm not as young anymore.
But my heart's posture wasn't right.
Right.
My heart's posture wasn't right.
And that's what it does. That's what bad, negative words do. You know? Sometimes they fuel you right, sometimes they fuel you wrong, and we have to bring it to the cross. Because even positive things
can be negative.
Oh.
Even positive things can be negative. So getting the PhD...
Two negatives make a positive.
Getting the PhD was great. But the stress and the financial burden...
girl is Dr. Jessica Fernandez.
Doctora. And now people are like, hey, Dr. Jess. And I'm like, oh, just call me Pastor Jess.
Oh, man. Yeah.
So, yeah, the words. And years. It took years.
This is not something that happens overnight. It is definitely something that you have to bring to the cross.
Surrender.
You have to surrender. You have to be in his presence, in his word. You have to find out who you are, not because man says it or not because you've achieved it, but because he has purposed it for you. And I'm just so thankful that you also have to surround yourself with people that know, that are like, man, you're so much more than the wounds you carry. You're so much more than what they said about you. Even when you shared that story with me way back then, I was like, Jess, don't believe that. Don't believe that. I mean, at that point, I think we were the blind leading the blind. But I knew it didn't sound right. It didn't fit right. And here we are.
Doing exactly what he told me that I couldn't do.
Right.
But, ultimately, our responsibility now is to make sure that we watch our words, because being a great communicator is a gift of God. And I think I said this on another podcast. We're always walking that line of whether we're going to bless you or whether we're going to curse you.
Yeah.
And so even our giftings we can use, for the enemy's kingdom.
I knew back in the day, in my ghetto fabulousness, let's make it very clear, my ghetto fabulousness. Back in the day, I wasn't much of a fighter with my hands.
Yeah.
I always enjoyed a good fight, though. I always enjoyed a good fight. I was always up for it. But I was more of a fighter with my mouth, because I knew exactly the words to use to bring you off your horse and to make you feel like you were the scum of the earth. And I mean, nothing that I'm proud of. I'm just exposing it. I knew exactly what to say.
It's the gifting. It's the gifting.
The gifting is always there, but how you use it.
It's how you use it.
How you use it.
Right. And we could cut you down quick.
It was the quickness for me. It was with the quickness for me.
Yeah. But I think that God really did a work in you immediately in that area. And sometimes God does that. Some people, God changes right away, right? There's some negative qualities. And some people would change as soon as they give their lives to Jesus. They change. Like, you're like, wow, that's amazing. Most of us is a process, right?
Yeah.
But I think for you, when you gave your life to Jesus, I feel like God immediately changed that part of your life, because you started using your gifting to bless others. Like, you've always been an encourager. You've always been a motivator. Now, for me, it's been a process and it's been a journey, because that same quality that God immediately, turn that negative into a positive, turn your gifting, right?
Yeah.
To use it for his glory. That's why it's taken me so long to get here.
Yeah.
Because it's taken years for God to mold that area of my character.
Right. And I remember, and I know,
because I was hurtful, girl.
Yes. And I know that it frustrated you. Like,
it
did. Frustrated you to wit's end. Like, I don't understand, Alexa. Like, when she's, I don't understand. Like, this isn't right. Like, this, blah, 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 blah. But in 2024, you understand. There are some things that change. I had a supernatural transformation at 17 years old. But it took maybe 3 years for the fornication and chains to fall off.
Yeah.
It took a while. There was some stuff that was let go immediately. There was some things that I surrendered completely. There's some other things that God had to work on, and it wasn't until later on in my years I understood why. Of course, the seeds of all the things that I was manifesting in and the reasons for them, right? But there were other things that, like, I wanted all of Jesus, man. And so did you. You wanted all of Jesus. But there's certain things that are harder to break. When you're talking about character, as a child, you're being formed in how you believe, how you behave, how you speak, how you act. And our formations in our homes, I lived in a home with anger. So I responded in anger. And that anger manifested in my marriage. I had to learn how to speak to my husband in a way that was respectful, because the environment that I grew up in, it was okay to pop off because I felt like it. And I had the entitlement of, if you make me angry, I'm going to make sure that you know that you made me angry. And that wasn't okay.
Yeah.
And
wow.
And I feel bad that one day, I remember in the home that my husband and I shared our first year of marriage, we get into a 24-hour feud. My husband is very reserved, calm.
And I would say passive.
And I was beating him with my words. I didn't curse, but I was beating him with my words. I was so angry, and I needed him to know that I was hurt by something that he did. And my response to being hurt by something that he did or didn't do was to lash out in anger. And 24 hours.
That's a long time.
It's a long time. I feel so bad. Like, he must have been like, oh my God, I married the devil's daughter. He
was like, is it too late for an annulment?
Yeah. Like, seriously, like, this isn't. And you know what stopped the fight?
What?
He turned around to me and said, I married you, not your father.
Wow.
And to just kind of bring it into context, at this point, I am saved. I am married. I am now 25 years old. But I had a hateful relationship with my father because of everything that transpired in my household. And I made an inner vow. Do you know what that inner vow was?
Never to be like him.
How did you know?
Because I be just knowing.
My inner vow was, I am never going to be like my father. And so when my husband hit me with those words, it shut me all the way down into utter humiliation.
Wow.
And I looked at him in terror. Because now he wasn't using his words to spite me or to hurt me. He was being honest. And he spoke truth.
That's good.
And I could have either rebelled completely and yelled at him and cursed him and all this other stuff, or I could have accepted it for what it was. And I shut all the way down. And it took me about a week to process that the very person that I tried to avoid, that I made an inner vow to never be like, I was operating just like him, and I was acting like him, and I was responding like him, and I was hurting the very man that vowed to be with me for the rest of my life and to love me as my mother did to my father.
Wow.
I was now doing the very thing that I had for so many years saw in my parents.
And hated.
I would never want to be home because I was tired of the fighting, tired of the verbal abuse, emotional abuse. It's too much for me. The constant humiliation to someone that I loved so much. And to hear someone tell me that what I was trying to run away from, I was running to. Because it was a learned behavior to react this way. I had to make a decision that week. The only way that you're going to not be this way is to surrender your anger and the words that anger used.
Oh, that's good. Yes. It is about surrendering anger, because some of us hold on to anger for so long, and it is so evident in everything that we do and everything that we say. Even our mannerisms are reflective of this deep-rooted anger. That, I mean, even myself struggling with anger for so many years. Even my kids were big, even in middle school, and here I am still struggling with anger all those years later.
Yeah.
And it really is about surrender, because we're not letting it go. We're not letting God heal those broken places in our hearts.
Yeah.
Because it's
and
serving
they are broken places. They are broken places.
And when we don't surrender something, it's because we're getting something out of it.
Control our way.
How is it serving you in this season?
Right.
Is it giving you attention?
That you're saying something.
What is it? What is it?
Something. You're saying it benefits you.
There's something that you're getting out of it because you keep doing it.
Right.
So what is it? Is it the control?
Yeah, and for many people,
is it manipulation?
For many people, just that control, manipulation, that Jezebel spirit. I'm gonna be the one that things are gonna go my way in this household.
Mm-hmm.
This marriage is gonna go this way. The kids are gonna do what I say, and we omit God from ever being present and being the center of it all, and allowing him to put the pieces together, because we think we know better how everything should go. Where we have a plan for our child, we want him to be a doctor, when God's like, no, I don't want him to be a doctor. Actually, I want him to go to law. I want him to be a pastor. Or like me, he's never going to finish school.
People hold on to it because it's serving them. So some people don't want to be vulnerable because they felt so vulnerable when they were growing up. Some people are afraid to give up because they believe it's giving up their power. It's,
power. Yeah.
Because they're going to be weak if they're not that way. Nobody's going to take advantage of me. I'm going to let them know.
As you say that, I believe that my dad at one point made an inner vow. Because he had a hard upbringing with his father. He was not a present father. And I believe that he's made an inner vow too. And it wasn't a healthy one. Right?
Yeah. And his inner vow could have been, no one's going to hurt me the way that I was hurt.
I'm going to be in control. I'm going to have the power.
No one's going to do that to me ever again.
Nobody's ever going to do that to me again. What they did to my mother.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what we need to ask ourselves. What is this? How is this serving me in this season? And we need to be real in answering that question. Well, why do I keep holding on to it?
Yeah.
And that's
good.
tough.
But it's real.
And also, we have to pray and ask God to help us reveal and accept what the Holy Spirit is about to tell us about ourselves.
You know, that going back to our younger years, back in the day when I was young, I'm not a kid anymore. But some days, you know, like, we did that a lot. We genuinely went to the Holy Spirit and asked him the questions. And we're listening for the answer. Because I feel like nowadays we ask the question, but we walk away before the answer's even given.
Or we quit.
Because the answer is always going to bring us into some form of change.
And some form of submission. And some of us are just not ready to let go and let God.
I remember both of us, I came to the Lord first, but we have the similar story like you shared. My first thing was, okay, God, I'm in a relationship right now, and I love this young man. And this young man is a good young man. Mm-hmm. But if he's going to get in the way of my relationship with you, then I'm going to ask you to have him break this off.
Remember I prayed that too?
And that's what I'm telling you. It's the same. And I was like, and if he does that, I know it's you. Both of us were just head over heels for each other. And it was a beautiful relationship. Nothing like I've had relationships. But this was just, it was really beautiful. It was different. And one day out of the blue, because I gave God a timeline in the next 7 days.
Ooh,
one day out of the blue,
you tested the Lord.
He calls me up and said late at night, and he's like, "Can I come over? I need to talk to you." And I'm like, "Sure, okay." And I had a feeling. And he came over and he's crying and he's like, "I don't know why, but I just can't be with you anymore." But I did tell the Lord, and if you do that, allow me to hurt for a moment, and as I sleep, heal my heart, that the next day it doesn't hurt anymore.
Wow.
I went that far with my prayer. People need to know the power of prayer. Okay?
That's a good prayer, though.
But people need to, I don't know, like, I cannot give myself all the credit. I believe the Holy Spirit groans for us and knows what we need to pray. And this is how deep our prayers were. And people need to know, you need to be specific with it. God is a specific kind of God. You need to be specific with it. And just as I prayed it, he left. I mean, we cried, and it was such a movie, It was such a movie scene. And we cried, and I said, "I'll see you later." And he left. And as he left, I laid down and I said, "Okay, God, remember our deal. It hurts right now, but tomorrow morning, it won't hurt anymore."
Oh my goodness.
And just as I prayed it, the next day I was like, "All right, well, let's go, God, me and you."
So, wow, you skipped over the heartbreak part.
You're talking about when you truly have to surrender something, you relinquish.
Yeah.
It all. Right?
Because in essence, what you're saying is, God, you're enough for me.
And he's still enough.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into it in another time, but I have lived it almost all. And I can tell you today that my God is enough. We had this conversation as we parked the car today, and I said, "Jess, if ever, my God is enough."
Mm-hmm.
And he is. My God has been more than faithful. More than I could ever dream, imagine, think. My God is enough. And when you decide you want to surrender something and you're praying and you're listening to the Holy Spirit and the Holy Spirit is telling you, give it completely to me, you need to listen to that. Because if you choose, it's a choice, if you choose to hold on to the very things that you believe you cannot live without, you're missing out on a whole part of your life that you will never know and enjoy.
Yeah. Because you couldn't let go of what you thought was the best thing for you. Yep. I prayed that same prayer.
I know you did. I was there.
You should have told me about the pain though.
Oh, I should have told you. And don't forget to pray this next part.
I prayed the first part, but I didn't pray the second part.
My girl it took a while. It took a while for her to let go completely.
Listen, my process is just always long. Whatever I go through is just gonna be long. And the reason is because I can be so erratic that God needs to like make sure that I always remember. Like I'm the Israelites in the 40 years. Like we're gonna give you 40 years so that when you think about going back, you're gonna remember the 40 years. Like
I can't, girl.
But I did. I prayed the prayer.
Yes, you did.
And that was like in the morning time. By that evening, this joker came over and broke up with me. I said, God, I take it back. God said, no backsies.
She called me up and she goes, Alexa, I take it back. I said, absolutely not.
God said, no backsies, Indian giver.
Absolutely not. And here you are, married to the right man.
And again, if I didn't surrender that, what I thought was the best, just wasn't the best for me.
Yeah.
God knew exactly what I needed, and it was the husband. And I met my husband a year later. So
that's right.
And I met my husband a year later. But hello, you can't find the one if you're have something in place that's not the one.
That's not how God works. God's not a confusing kind of God. He's not going to put two things before you and say, I have two great things for you. Pick which one. No.
Yeah.
You have what you think is great for you. But the Bible says in James 1, all good and perfect things. All good and perfect things come from heaven above. All good and perfect. Just because it looks good doesn't mean it's perfect for you.
That's it.
You have to know, my God does not make mistakes. But some of us do not wait on the perfect. We settle for the good. Y nos cae mal. And then, like you said, then instead of living blissfully and joyfully, what ends up happening is we take the long journey, the long road to our promise. Listen, I'm in my 40s now. I don't got the time.
Nobody got time for that.
I don't have the time anymore, Jess. Like, we can't.
No. God, I've already learned I don't want the 40 years anymore. I just want let's go, God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but God knows exactly how each of us learns. And how each of us is going to be molded. Some of us learn. I say this all the time about my kids. I have the girl, and she's the kid that says, Mom said don't put your hand on a hot stove or you're going to get burned. And then I have the boy who's like, Mom said don't put your hand on a hot stove, you're going to get burned. And he's like, let me see if that's true.
You're the let me see if that's true.
And he's like his mother. There you go. So some of us learn fast, right? Yeah. God tells you something, you don't do it. And then some of us are like, God told us something, let me see if it's true. And that's where we get ourselves in trouble. And that's when we end up roaming around for 40 years because God keeps trying to teach us a lesson and we're just unwilling to learn it.
We're going to talk about one day some of the hardest lessons we've learned.
Oh my gosh.
We're going to talk. And that's going to be like a continuum, right? We're probably going to have to like carry that out a few episodes. But that's today. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it blessed your life.
Absolutely.
Today you make a choice what to do with the words that were said to you, what to do with the words that you say about yourself. what to do with the words that God has spoken over you. And we hope that you join us on this journey.
Yes.
And don't forget to share your story. That's what we're supposed to say. This is Las Locas Chronicles! Signing out.
See you next time.
We'll see you next week.